Hey folks, good morning. This is Thomas McDowell, back again with another segment of Farm to Home. I'm a fourth generation pharmacist, owner of Rocky Mount Medical Park Pharmacy here in Rocky Mount, right down the road, and also McDowell's Pharmacy in Scotland Neck. I also own a home care agency, Happier Home, here in Rocky Mount. And they finally let me on here by myself, so we'll see if we can learn something today. We're going to talk about a topic that is probably affecting a large percentage of folks in the area right now, and that's congestion, specifically nasal congestion, upper respiratory congestion, and that comes with colds and viruses and often the flu and COVID and all of the seasonal things that are often affecting us in the wintertime. So this is one of the most popular questions we get when we have patients coming into the pharmacy, and that is, what can I take for congestion? I'm stuffy, can't breathe out of my nose. I've actually am fighting off a cold from last week and still have a little residual stuffiness. And so let's dive into some of the options there. So there's a lot of over-the-counter remedies that you can take for congestion. Doesn't necessarily have to be a prescription. So the one that I'm a big fan of that really helps clear up specifically the congestion in the nose and the sinuses is a nasal steroid. So there's Flonase, Nasacort. Any of those typically work fairly well. What those are doing is they're preventing inflammation, they're anti-inflammatory. Often when you have a cold, there's a lot of inflammation in the nose and in the sinuses that actually kind of leads to the congestion. And Flonase also helps with allergy type symptoms as well, if you have some of the runny nose aspect. But if you're using a nasal spray, especially if you're not able to kind of breathe when you're trying to go to sleep, those are a great option. There's loads of different kinds. You don't want to necessarily overuse it, and if you don't need it all the time, I wouldn't recommend using it all the time, but in short courses, definitely safe. And that's something that we still see when folks go to their doctor. They'll often be prescribed the Flonase. So next in line is a common one, very effective, but a couple side effects that we have to look out for, and that is Sudafed. So Sudafed is the brand name. The ingredient is pseudoephedrine. It's actually a stimulant, but it's a very effective nasal decongestant. So it actually can cause a little bit of heart rate increase and blood pressure increase. So if you deal with high blood pressure or have any heart issues, talk to your pharmacist. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't take it, but you want to be well controlled, especially on the blood pressure side, if you're going to end up taking something that might raise your blood pressure just a hair. It doesn't affect some people very much. Occasionally I'll have somebody tell us that they can feel their heart racing a little bit from the Sudafed. So, and it's one that they kind of keep behind the counter at the pharmacy. You can't just pick it up right out on the shelf. You have to show your driver's license to get it. You can only buy so much of it per month. And just a fun fact, the reason is that pseudoephedrine is an ingredient that is used illegally to manufacture methamphetamines or crystal methamphetamines. So there's restrictions on how much you can buy, but don't let that deter you. It's an effective option for congestion, especially if you're healthy and don't have any pre-existing heart issues or blood pressure, that kind of thing. And you'll also see it in a lot of combination products. There's ingredients formulations where they'll have the Sudafed and maybe a pain reliever or antihistamine or something like that. And so you really want to be looking at the ingredients. If you see something that says like Advil D, the D is for pseudoephedrine. So just be aware of that and know what you're getting. The Sudafed comes in a short-acting version 4 to 6 hours of duration. It also comes in a 12-hour duration. And so one of the biggest counseling points that I tell our patients when they're taking Sudafed is make sure that you're aware that it can keep you up at night. Like I said, it's a little bit of a stimulant, and so if you're taking it late in the evening, it can keep you from sleeping. And so I usually recommend the shorter acting version, the one that lasts about 4 to 6 hours. That way you can kind of control when you take it. And versus the 12-hour one, it's very likely to interfere with your sleep no matter when you take it, potentially. So I'm a fan of the shorter acting one. You can take it throughout the day and then maybe not take any after dinner time and still be able to get some sleep. So another one that I want to talk about that we're not seeing as much of as an ingredient because of a statement that the FDA put out a couple of years ago is phenylephrine. So phenylephrine was often seen in a lot of the combination products. The brand name cold and flu, cold and sinus that are out front that don't have Sudafed. They often had phenylephrine. Well, the FDA actually released a statement a couple of years ago based on a lot of research and studies saying that phenylephrine is really not effective. And so it's not harmful necessarily. There's not really data showing harm, but it doesn't really provide any relief from congestion. So not necessarily something you want to use if you're really stuffy. So just a FYI, if you're looking at the ingredients and you see phenylephrine, you might want to ask your pharmacist about something else that you could take that might give you some more relief on the congestion side. Another nasal spray that is a non-steroid nasal spray is Afrin, and that's a brand name. There's other versions of it, and Afrin is pretty effective for congestion, but it basically it helps to constrict the blood vessels in the nose, and that kind of relieves some of the pressure and the congestion and inflammation. But if you use Afrin or anything equivalent to that with the same ingredient for longer than about 3 days, it can actually worsen your congestion through what's called rebound congestion. And so rebound congestion is basically where when you use it a few days, your body responds in a way where it actually worsens the congestion. So nobody wants that. So if you use it, something like Afrin, just make sure that short course and then move on to something else, or hopefully maybe in a few days your symptoms are improved and you don't need it anymore. So that's another nasal option. And a new option that has come out recently, there are some more allergy-driven nasal sprays that have come out similar to I think one's called maybe Astapro or something like that are similar to some of the antihistamine type nasal sprays that previously have been prescription only. So those are going to help more with the runny nose versus the congestion. You have to be careful if you're using an antihistamine or if you're taking an oral antihistamine. If your main symptom is congestion, there is some thought that with an antihistamine such as Zyrtec, Claritin, Allegra, if you're taking one of those pills by mouth for heavy congestion and you don't really have any runny nose, sometimes they can dry up the nasal passages, and that can create a little bit more of a gunked up mucus situation where it's harder to clear the mucus. So really talking to your pharmacist is the key of kind of navigating this, because we're going through tons of options, tons of scenarios, but the simplest thing to do is to come and talk to your local pharmacist. If you're not using an independent pharmacy, highly encourage you to. We have ours, of course. We'd love to help you, but there's others in the area, and that way they can evaluate your symptoms and help guide you to something that's going to be effective versus you just trying to pick up whatever looks good on the counter or whatever has the best marketing, because these companies with these over-the-counter products for cold and sinus and flu type symptoms, They're really trying to catch your eye and sell you on something, but it's not always the best ingredient for your situation. So we love helping people with over-the-counter remedies. And another one, if you're not big on taking medications or drugs necessarily, and you want something a little more natural, there's also neti pots. So neti pots, basically you're pouring kind of a saline solution through one side of your nasal passage, and it flows over to the other side and rinses out your nasal passage. So it clears out mucus, can help clear out potentially some of the bacteria and the virus. It's not equivalent to an antibiotic or an antiviral, but if you have a localized infection, sinus infection, viral infection in the sinuses, clearing out those cells through a neti pot can potentially be beneficial. And so it takes a little getting used to, because you're having to tilt your head, you have to get by a sink, and you're just running water from one side through your nasal passage to the other side. But a lot of people say it's extremely effective, and so that's an option where you can actually couple that with other actual medications. You could do the neti pot, then wait a little while, and then do the Flonase. And then you can also take Sudafed. You can take a lot of these medications together and really attack that congestion. There's usually something you can take for your symptoms, mostly just symptom relief. If you're having something that lasts longer than 10, 14 days, and especially if you have a fever associated with it, you probably want to talk to your doctor if that's not going away. We're seeing a lot of flu right now, and that's what's leading to a lot of the congestion and the stuffiness is the flu. COVID is still circulating. With the flu, just if you're wondering what that looks like, the flu is usually rapid onset. So pretty quickly, all of a sudden, you're feeling like you got hit by a bus. Fever, aches, body chills, the stuffiness, maybe some cough. It doesn't always have a ton of sore throat, but sometimes it does. But a lot of stuffiness and a lot of the body aches and chills. And so we're seeing a lot of flu. Just in the past 2 weeks at the pharmacy, we have dispensed more Tamiflu than we have the entire winter season. So the past 2 weeks has been heavy on the flu, so really be careful of what's out there and making sure that you're doing your due diligence, trying to avoid places where you might be more likely to get sick. And if you've had your flu shot, hopefully that can help protect you. It's not a guarantee, but if you did get a flu shot, it typically makes the flu less severe if you do get the flu. It's not guaranteed to keep you from getting it, though. We're still seeing some COVID. COVID usually doesn't have quite as severe body aches and chills, but it can have those. It can be very confusing to figure out what you have without getting tested. And then there's also just some of the regular common colds that we're seeing. But either way, these options over the counter that we've talked about can work in any situation. But in certain scenarios, COVID, flu, you might consider seeing your doctor and seeing if there's a prescription that they want you to have to help alleviate some of those symptoms. And so we talked about the antihistamine. So if your stuffiness is kind of more from runny nose and allergy symptoms, or postnasal drip, and it's leading to more cough, that's when I'm a fan of an antihistamine like the Zyrtec, the Claritin, the Allegra. Those are options to dry things up. They're going to help prevent that runny nose, that drip, that nasal running, not necessarily as much for thick congestion. And so those are an option. There's also like Mucinex or guaifenesin is the ingredient there. Mucinex, a lot of people are correlating, I have a lot of mucus going on, a lot of mucus discharge, nasal or through the chest, so I should take Mucinex. Well, Mucinex is really most effective for chest congestion. Doesn't necessarily do as much for nasal congestion. Not necessarily harmful, but that's an option if you're having a lot of chest mucus and congestion in the chest. And a lot of times the upper respiratory colds or infections will travel to the chest, and you want to be careful if you start seeing that pathway and then you have a lot of chest congestion and then you're developing a fever. That's when we might be worried about some pneumonia or something like that. And so those are a lot of the options that we're looking at over the counter. And so again, we encourage you to come talk to us at Rocky Mount Medical Park Pharmacy. We're a full-service pharmacy serving Nash County and the surrounding areas. We're located in the Medical Park Building, 901 North Winstead Avenue on the first floor. Our number's here on the screen, 252-443-7979. We'd love to help you out with some over-the-counter recommendations. If you're out in the Scotland Neck area, come see us at McDowell's Pharmacy in Scotland Neck. Call us anytime, and we would love to help you. If you don't feel like you have access to a pharmacist in your current situation, we would encourage you to seek out a relationship with a local independent pharmacist. And we enjoyed speaking with you today on this episode of Pharm to Home, and we look forward to seeing you back at the next segment. Thanks, and have a great day.